Blog Talk Radio.
When a silent majority allows their nation to lose its common sense, that nation is lost, and you are allowing them to take your country away from you. Is it common sense to adore at the altar of multiculturalism? Read your world history. Not one nation has survived as a multiculture. It's the uniculture that is your strength. One country, one culture, one language. Is it common sense that 84% of the people want to make English the official language of America, but your majority political party espouses insanity, ignores the people, and says no? Is it common sense that 53 countries, mostly in Africa, have declared English to be their national language, and the party who declares we will unite you says press 2 for Spanish? Is it common sense to adopt your new national religion of diversity when the very word means disunity? We founded a country on similarities, not diversities. One country, one culture, one language. You cry out for unity, but is it common sense to continue to identify yourselves by your ethnicities and not your nationalism? White-America, Black-America, Chinese-America, Hispanic-American, gay and lesbian-American, the Black Caucus, the Hispanic Caucus, the Women's Caucus. You want unity? Change your language. Isn't it time, once again, we all became just plain Americans? Or is that too much common sense? Is it your new common sense now to stand up and cheer when a presidential candidate wants to hand over the health care system to that same government who has run Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and 12 other entitlement programs into bankruptcy? A government bureaucracy who can't run a railroad, your airports, secure your borders, or find 15 to 20 million illegal aliens. That same government that allows Islamic women to take their driver's license picture wearing a neck scarf covering their face because it offends their belief. What's next? Allowing the Ku Klux Klan wearing their hoods? Is it common sense to bankrupt the American Treasury? Fighting wars for countries whose silent majority won't fight for themselves? Your debt is now $9.4 trillion. Is it common sense to continue to give away $9 billion of taxpayer money to unfriendly countries in foreign aid, including $2 billion a year to Egypt, who votes against the United States 80% of the time in the United Nations? All this while your own inner cities crumble. 40% of your high school graduates can only read or write at a 4th grade level. You have to import people from China and India for your high-tech industry because you haven't got enough smart people in America. And New Orleans and the flood victims of Iowa continue to be forgotten. This is madness. Lay down your misplaced global burden and rebuild America first. You can't support the world while neglecting your own country. Are you unifying the country with common sense when both of your presidential candidates cry out, we must show compassion for the 15 to 20 million invaders from south of your border? But not one word of compassion for the overburdened American taxpayer who is forced to subsidize the invaders by paying over $250 billion of their hard-earned money to establish America as the welfare department of a failed, corrupt foreign country. Are you unifying your country with common sense by sending out your utility bills and your Social Security checks in Spanish? Legal and illegal immigrants have no incentive to learn your unifying language because you make it easy for them not to assimilate. How many of you write in big letters across that bill, English only, please, and send it back? Stop bending over backwards to accommodate every other culture but your own. Is it common sense to allow your activist judges to ignore your history, your culture, your Declaration of Independence, and every other founding document to remove God from public life? And endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights, their creator, not the ACLU, not the will of the atheist, or the anti-Americans that sit on the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals in San Francisco. Separation of church and state, yes. Separation of God from public life, never intended by your founding fathers. Is it common sense that the very political party who claims to be the party of the people and shouts, we will bring change, consistently stops all common sense legislation to secure your borders, establish workplace verification, and stop taxpayer money for illegals? They call themselves progressive global thinkers. We had another word for them in 1776. We called them traitors. This happened all once before. 232 years ago, it led to revolution and thousands of dead in the streets. It will happen again unless you take back America now. Join the grassroots movement of the Second American Revolution, not of guns and violence, but pressure, pressure, pressure on your none-representing representatives who created these problems in the first place. This is the most important phone number in your democracy, the Congressional Switchboard. Pick up your phone every day, every hour if need be, and call your representatives and tell them in no uncertain language to listen to the silent majority or else be thrown out on their hindquarters. It's toll-free, and your taxes pay for it. Would you stand by and watch your family perish when you have the power to save them? Of course not. Then why are you doing that to your own country? 1-866-340-9281. Perhaps you allow all this destructive, uncommon sense out of a distorted notion of tolerance. Remember what Aristotle said, tolerance is the last virtue of a dying society. You are tolerating the behavior that is destroying you. This wine was once rich, highly desired and admired, but when you dilute it with enough water, it stops being anything. Take back America now. Choose to be part of the Second American Revolution. Pressure, pressure, pressure. No presidential candidate, no political party can save you now. Only an aroused citizenry will turn this uncommon sense around. And he or she who does nothing now is helping them to destroy America. My name is Thomas Paine, and I approve of this message. I only hope.
Joseph Gibson podcasting live from Greensboro, North Carolina, 7:07 p.m. on the East Coast here in the U.S. of A. How's everybody doing tonight? We are live, as always, 100% live. What's on your mind tonight? What do you want to talk about? What agenda do you propose here tonight? What do you want to bring to the table? It's open forum. There's no particular subject. Usually when that happens, it turns into a madhouse, but hopefully we can have a little control here tonight, and people can speak fluently, educationally, and bring their voices to the platform and bring them live. And that's what I offer, a live platform. So, without further ado, does anyone here press the number 1 and I will bring you on live to the platform? Understanding the times in which we live in today, do you have something to offer the platform, or are you going to call in and make funny noises? Or are you going to use a live platform worldwide to talk nonsense or ridicule me or ridicule other callers? This is the show here tonight. It's Friday night, 7:08 p.m. to be exact, and we're here to understand the times in which we live in today. So, without further ado, I know someone here wants to speak. Let's bring one on here and see where we go from here. I don't know where John from Mississippi is. He requested me to do a show, and I don't see him pressing 1. I wanted to give him the platform here tonight. Don't know where he is. However, we'll start here up first with Mr. He's well-liked and well-hated, but I don't see anyone else pressing 1 who wants to join into the conversation here and arouse people and bring pressure to your next door neighbors, to you yourself. Bring pressure before you get high blood pressure. All right, Mandela Khan, you get the floor first. Go ahead.
Hey, Joe.
Yes, Mr. Mandela Khan. Go ahead, Mr. Mandela Khan Davis. You get the floor first, uninterrupted for a few minutes. Go ahead until we get the usual suspects that want to drop us a line. So go ahead. What do you want to talk about tonight?
Yes, I want to do a little global reset inside of understanding the times we live in today. Since I declare the Ethiopian matriarch and class action 567, which is the victory for of and by the people authorized from the common law court that's backed by international law and bingo, powerball, jackpot.
Oh,
Natural
there's
law
John.
from the
Hang on, Mendelicon. I didn't mean to interrupt you. John, I do see you.
Okay.
Mendelicon, you're next. Go ahead, Mendelicon.
Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to yield the floor because, I'm going to let you and your standard procedure set the tone on where you're at because, I'm on a different plane. So, you know me. So, I ain't got no problem with listening.
Okay. All right. That's fine. I was just wanting to acknowledge John because I was talking about him before he called in. That's all. When I see new callers that I requested to come onto the platform, I just wanted to let them know that they were here. But if you want to yield for a little while here, you're more than welcome to.
No
all
problem.
right. Go ahead, John. Go ahead, Mendelicon. I'm going to bring John on. Go ahead, John. The floor is yours. Go ahead.
How are you today, man? All right. I'm
doing
sorry,
all right.
man.
I don't know if you heard the intro or not, but the floor is yours. I was waiting for you to call in, so the floor is yours here for a few minutes. Go ahead.
All righty. Well, let's find something to talk about then. Let's talk about the Constitution of the United States, the Bill of Rights, more importantly, the First Amendment, how you bring grievance to government and assemble peacefully to bring change in government when they're acting tyrannically. And if they don't correct their course of action, that we are to exercise the Second Amendment. That is our duty as Americans, to correct the course of our government and abolish our government if necessary, which at this point I believe is 100% necessary. So I've been calling for a revolution, for us all to stand up together, exercise the Second Amendment, and arrest all the officials in charge in this country, in every state, in every municipality, all the people in charge. Change our form of governing so that the few don't live off the oppression of the many any longer. We live in a state, in a way, that heroes are considered people that kill innocent people, and they're considered heroes. Innocent people that have no defense, and they go in there and kill them, and then they're celebrated as heroes in this country. The only heroes we got in this country are the hard-working men and women that actually produce and provide for the people of this country. Our police officers aren't heroes. They're domestic terrorists. The laws and statutes that they enforce on us, the people of this country, are acts of domestic terrorism. They're not constitutional. They're tyranny. It's extortion 100%. With these laws we're governed under, we're being extorted. And then they say they're heroes. And they're not heroes. On the contrary, they're tyrants. And then we teach our children to think that these professions are noble professions when they're not. And that's what we have to change, the way we teach our children, so they don't follow in the footsteps that we did, as a society. And I just believe that we have the power and a duty to do this already. And that's why I've been calling for November 2nd, for us all to unite, exercise the Second Amendment, and take back our country, bring back our military from overseas, from all around the world, back home, because nobody in the world has attacked us. The only enemies we got are our government. Immigrants coming across our border are not here to hurt us, but our government is hurting us every day with every action they take. It's plain, simple common sense. There has not been a politician, a president, or anybody in the last 150 years that has passed any laws or any statutes that have benefited the people of this country. They all benefit corporate. They all benefit tyrants. But they don't benefit us, the hard workers. They actually bring us tyranny. They bring us slavery. They bring us oppression. They're kidnapping approximately 800,000 American children out of good homes every year now. I could go on if you want me to. Are you there?
Yeah, the floor is yours here for a little bit. I promised you the floor here, so continue on, and then we'll get into a discussion and maybe bring on some other callers here. So Go ahead, continue on.
Okay. You know, they've accomplished this by dividing us, giving us false narratives to hate, you know, giving titles, giving division in every way, shape, or form. If it's not religion, it's going to be through race. If it's not through race, it's through your political narrative. But it's all division for no reason. And you got your classes, you know, your upper class, your middle class, your lower class. There should only be one class, the human race. And there should only be one race, the human race. When we all unite equally and not worry about what the other man's got, just worry about that we all are doing well individually, that we take care of each other so nobody's left behind, absolutely nobody has a lesser position. That's when we will evolve as a race of human beings. That's when we will become something that we were supposed to be. I believe we were supposed to be. I don't think we're supposed to be this warmongering, destructive race. That's all the human race is right now. Warmongering and destructive, you know, and it is our duty. I mean, a lot of people think they got just worry about themselves, find themselves a little hole, let happen what happens around them. But then when it comes down on them, you know, they want to complain and say, this ain't fair. This is not just. No, it's fair and it's just what's happening to everybody right now in the sense that we're not standing up to stop it. We don't deserve any better. Until we can stand up, united, and bring it to an end, we don't deserve any better. As a human race, we deserve to be destroyed. We deserve extinction. The problem with extinction is we're all going to go extinct. All the good people of this world are going to go extinct. But the tyrants and the evils that created this system, they're going to survive. They have their plans in place. They have their cities underground. They're going to survive through it all. And we're going to be left dead. Then they're going to start it all over again. This is not the first time we're going through this, but we should make it the last. Because in the United States, we still have our guns. They haven't been able to take that from us yet completely. They're trying very hard, obviously, but they haven't been able to. And as long as we have that, we can stand up united and without firing a single shot, just having the numbers and the will to do what's necessary. If necessary, they will stand down because they have nothing to fight us with. The United States military will never attack American soil. They will never bomb American soil. You cannot convince the Army, Navy, Air Force, or Marines to attack America. That you can't make that order. That order would never be followed. You know? And per the Constitution, once we stand up against our government, no longer is the president chief of the military. He loses his position. All of a sudden, we, the people, the militia, the real militia, the people, okay, become in charge of the military. They are to follow our orders. And that is the way this country was founded. And with that said, I mean, I don't want to take up all your airtime here. And I know I could talk for hours if you let me. Well, I could jump from subject to subject.
That's fine. You may have missed the introduction of the show, but it's open forum here tonight until someone challenges you or has. Excuse me, that's my computer there sounding off. People messaging me. Well, you got to call in 657-383-0616. I know you're listening through Facebook and Twitter and whatnot. The phone number again is 657-383-0616. Some people may be having trouble trying to get through. But, you can take up as much time as you want. Does Mandela Khan want to interject here, or is there anyone else who wants to press number one, or maybe flip the script here and talk about another singular issue that they feel is important to them, because this is open forum here tonight, open platform. So, John, you can carry on. Mandela Khan, are you still there? Do you want to interject here? I don't see any. I don't know if people are having trouble getting through or not.
I'm not going to interfere with you guys' affairs. I will be patient and wait my turn. That's all.
Miguel Khan, I know you want the same thing I do. You want us all to be free. You're tired of this oppression as much as I am, as much as most Americans are. But we have to stand united. We can't divide. We can't be against any races, because it isn't any of the races that is our problem. It's the leaders. Only the leaders, not the people. A lot of people say It's the white man. It's not the white man. It's the people in charge. A lot of them, yes, they have white skin. Big deal. That doesn't make any difference. Believe me, it's them, not us. We're being oppressed just as much as anyone else. You know, if I can even be considered white. I look white, but I'm actually Cuban, so I'm brown. But it doesn't matter because we're all the same, man. You know, and if we don't unite, they're going to win. We cannot take them down unless we unite. So we can't be against each other. We can't be just for our race or just for our group. We have to unite with all the people that are suffering. There are so many issues, so many weapons of mass destruction being deployed on the people by the United States government. You got the Department of Children and Families. You got family court. You got the entire justice system against us. You know, we got a police departments and justices out there and sheriff stations that are nothing but domestic terrorists. Their job is to be a domestic terrorist. You know, they enforce these corporate rules and regulations that extort us. And if we don't bow down and worship it and accept it, we get punished.
All right, John, I've got someone else who wants to queue in here, a private number here. So, John, stay on the line, please. We'll see what happens here. It's open forum here tonight. No guests, no particular subject. John brought up a subject here, the Constitution, and wanted to talk about the tyranny that's affecting Americans today. That's fine. It's open forum. I'm not going to debate anybody here, but I may throw some plugs out there and see what happens. But let's take the private caller here. Private caller, go ahead. You're unmuted.
Yes, Joe and John. Refer to me as John Doe. That way, if you want to address anything I say, because all these blog talk radio shows, I'm always John Doe. And I agree with John.
Okay, John Doe. Okay, John Doe. Okay, go ahead, John Doe.
Okay, thank you. And I agree with what John was saying in the respects of what the problem is. And I'm always just looking for how we can all come together in deciding how to move forward whenever we have this tyrannical group of people throughout history since 1787 when the Constitution was ratified. Every administration has, no matter what, every group of people that gets voted into office automatically think that they are the little dictators, because once they get in office, they feel that they can burden and encumber you against your will and use the government as a weapon to force you to be obligated to their will. Therefore, they leave your right to your pursuit of happiness out of the system. But my concern is, how do we rightfully go about using the rule of law? Because right now we do not have the rule of law. We have the rule of man deceitfully masquerading under the color of law. And we got to know the difference between the rule of law and the rule of man and what makes up that difference. Because everything that's going on with this oligarchy of fascist dictators have been circumventing and violating the Constitution since 1787. There's good parts and bad parts. The Declaration of Independence is the only document that has any true stability and integrity. Now, how we interpret the Constitution, that democratically constituted republic, or it's a representative republic we're supposed to have, but they commit fraudulent representation because they don't actually represent each and every one of us. They actually represent whoever they want to represent. Now, my argument is we got to figure out what the difference between the rule of man and the rule of law is, and then use the rule of law back against them. Unfortunately, I'm not Mr. Know-it-all, and I like to share with other people different ideas, so those that are smarter than me, we can all group together and do what John's saying and holding these people accountable, and I hope to do it without having to exercise violence. But hey, if it comes to that after we've exercised every other option, count me in. Let's load up and go. But until that time, I haven't heard anybody actually attempt to try to get hold of any constituent services and work out an actual draft agreement for us to all unify behind, so that way we can hold ourselves in true obedience to the rules, laws, processes, and procedures of governing, that we're willing to mutually pledge our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor to uphold ourselves. So we're just scattered. We have to have the same kind of conversation that the people, the founding freedom fighters did on, in Independence Hall, in order to know how to go forward with critical thinking. And I don't hear that going on, except for the oligarchy of fascist dictators who are ruling over us. They sit in their marble towers and all of their fine establishments, and they actually have their
let me ask you, sir,
groups.
John Doe, let me ask you a question, though. The Declaration of Independence contains several references to God. The Constitution, none at all. The reasons for this variation reveal a great deal about the founding principles of the United States. I mean, the Declaration of Independence in itself is an apology for revolution, support for a complete break with Great Britain. We know that because we broke away from Great Britain at that time. No country venerates its founding fathers like the United States. Academics, legislators, judges, even ordinary citizens all frequently seek to validate their opinions and policy, identifying themselves with God. So God is referred to in the Constitution. So let's maybe, does anyone out there have an opinion of that? Because I know a lot of people say, oh, no, religion divides people, and there is no God, and blah, blah, blah. But history proves me right.
Are you going to allow me to respond to that?
Let me point something out.
Hang on a second here. Well, all right, hang on a second, John. Before you do, the result, go ahead. You go first. Go ahead.
Okay. The Constitution refers as to our Creator, to each man's Creator, not to God, not to one God.
But that's not what it says, John. It says God-given rights. That's what it says.
No.
In stating that people's rights were given to them by their Creator, and their Creator, which was referred to in the Constitution and the Federalist Papers, was God. What God has given to man.
Not the Constitution. Federal.
No, they were references to why the founders wrote the Constitution. But go ahead, John.
Not once do you hear the word God. Okay? I know you got that confused, but not once. Each man is endowed by his Creator, whoever he chooses that his Creator is. There is no God, by the way, just on that. Now, as to how we fix our society.
Well, what evidence do you have of that, John? Can you provide some evidence that there is no God?
Okay, I don't know. Let's not get into the religious aspect of this.
No. We're talking about the Constitution, and the Constitution does refer to God. It does. The genius of. Hang on, John. Let me answer your question. The genius of the Declaration is the inclusive way of the divine's given expression. The affiliations of God are generic. The inherence of the traditional way that words, nature's God, Creator, and Supreme Judge. That's what the Constitution refers to, and understand them to mean the God they worship. The claims made on numerous through the Federalist Papers and the Constitution that God, they were referring to their Creator as a God. But go ahead, John.
Okay. The point is, Federalist Papers were before the Constitution, and the Constitution overrode and eliminated the Federalist Papers. For the Federalists was the laws of Great Britain. Okay, that's when we were ruled by Great Britain. Okay, now we're not. But now, let's look it forward. We've tried to reason with our government to stop this oppression. They rule by force. We cannot get change. We've already tried. There is no more trying through legal terms other than the fact that we go legally per the Constitution, okay, the Second Amendment. But say we stand up, we take our country back. We learn from the mistakes of the past. We get rid of the monetary system. We keep the monetary system, we get the same system we got now, which would mean we stood up for nothing because we didn't change anything. Okay, we just changed the faces on the top, but there's still going to be the same puppeteer up there. So we have to get rid of the monetary system. We have to get rid of putting people in places of power. No longer can you put somebody in an office to where he can make a decision or know things that you don't know. Everything has to be 100% transparency. They can't make decisions.
John, just real quick before I let you carry on here. The Federalist Papers actually were written in 1788. They were a series of 85 essays urging the citizens to ratify the new United States Constitution, which was written by Alexander Hamilton, James Madison, and John Hay. So they were actually written after, not before the Revolution, actually. I just want to clarify that.
Okay.
Go ahead, John.
It was during the Revolution. But the Constitution was ratified in 1791. That's when that came into play. Okay, these are our founding documents. Okay?
1787.
These are what the new government is going to go under.
Actually, 1788. But go ahead, John.
1791. Check it out. It was not ratified until after the Bill of Rights was added. They wrote the Constitution and said, okay, we're going to let this go, but we're not going to ratify this until we see a Bill of Rights to understand more what the rights are and to limit the power of government precisely. And then they wrote the Bill of Rights. And when that was accepted, then the Constitution was ratified. Hey, I'm a lot about the Constitution. I know a lot. I even know that I ordered a Constitution that was supposed to be a copy of the original Constitution online. And when I'm reading it here, it's not even the original Constitution. The original Constitution forbidded the government from having any power over the people, prohibited it. The only power it gave the government was to form a military to defend this country, not to be attacking other countries. It gave no authority at all for the government to write laws to govern the people of this country. None. They don't have the right to make these laws and extort us. These are all acts of treason and domestic terrorism. That's all they are. And if people knew the truth, they would not put up with this. If they knew they could live free, the fact that we use tax dollars to build power plants, and then we have to pay for the power that comes.
Well, John, I got to disagree with you right there. You're contradicting yourself, John. There's no such thing as tax dollars because the Federal Reserve prints the money. There's no such thing as tax dollars.
You know what I'm saying. I know what you're saying about the Federal Reserve, and I understand all that, but that's all because we're under a corrupt, complete, fraudulent system. I mean, that we know. So if we get rid of the monetary system, all that goes away. If we all just do our part and work 20
John,
hours.
I'll agree with you there. We get rid of the current monetary system right now, such as the Federal Reserve banking cartels out there and the central bankers. So what do we replace it with? Nothing?
Nothing.
Then how will man barter with each other? How do we barter with each other? Because you know greed will take over. Greed will take over.
But understand, no, greed will take over if you barter, where people can hoard. But if you don't have a reason to hoard because it has no value other than what you need to survive and what others need to survive, then greed is eliminated because everybody shares. You have your personal possessions, your personal stuff.
Now, John, you know as well as I do, not to interrupt you, nobody's going to share because that's just human nature. You know, human nature is to take.
It's human nature to share. The problem is we have been in this system for so long that we lost our nature. We're working under an unnatural system to where all we do is greed and hurt and war. Human nature is not about that. That's just something that's being indoctrinated into everybody. That I got to have mine, me, more. The more I have, the more I can do. The more freedom, the more power, the more authority. No, it's not true. When you stop chasing
John,
all that.
General. Now, John, just let me ask this now. Now, you obviously are a very intelligent individual. Now, the general psychological characteristics, feelings, and behavioral traits of humankind, regarded as shared by all humans, is to what? Take, or I want what he has, or I'm jealous of what he has, or I want better for myself, so that the next man has to take away from the other man or woman or what have you. These are human characteristics ever since the beginning of time. So we
that's
can't
just the
erase
beginning of time.
history and say, well, that's not true. We know throughout human history, people have taken, kill, or be killed. I want to know, John, is how do we change that? You're saying just get rid of money and that's all going to change.
Before we got here, before we got on this land, there were Indians here. There was an indigenous. Can you call on that phone? Because this one keeps cutting in and out. There was an indigenous people on this land. They didn't have a monetary system. They had a tribal system. The whole tribe worked for the tribe. Everybody did good. Everybody did equal. You know, everybody did their part. Everybody equally got from that. Not somebody being in charge, hoarding it all and saying, I'm going to give you a little bit. Okay, you got to do this for me, and I'll give you a tiny bit of this. You go get me 100 potatoes, and I'll give you 2 potatoes back. No, that's not it. That's not the way it should be. Please, can I use your phone?
Do you have the number?
Hello, am I still on the line?
Yes, you're still on the line, John, yes.
Yeah. I noticed my phone was cutting in and out when you were talking. So I'm trying to call from another phone, but I don't even know how to operate it. I got one hand. Oh, please.
You're coming through pretty fine for the most part, John.
Oh, I am? Okay. No, when Gibson was talking, kept cutting in and out.
John,
And,
all right,
that was
John,
annoying
go
for
ahead,
me.
John. Let me answer you. All right, while you do that, John, look, the definition of human nature is very clear. When you look in the mirror, you are checking how you appear, okay? It's very simple. What you seem to be and whether it matches how you feel inside. Thinking about human nature is the equivalent of our whole species looking in the mirror to check its identity. John, you know, just as we all react differently to our own reflections in the mirror, John, the reflection we call human nature is also, you know, often disputed. And so we're disputing right now human nature. So you're telling me that if we give up all our money and we give up all our prized possessions, that we're all just going to go along and get along? You know, I mean, it doesn't make any sense.
I didn't say give up anything. I didn't say give up anything. Okay? Nothing. You keep all your prized possessions. Those are your personal possessions. Other people have their personal possessions.
Okay, so I keep all my prized possessions. Well, what if you have less than I do, John? Because you're offering me a system right now where everything is mine and everything is yours.
No. You don't understand. Food, power, things for survival, housing, all that, we all help each other make sure we all have. We will have no reason to envy somebody else's things. Because if we wanted that, we could go get it ourselves. You got to drop the envy out. You got to look, the monetary system, the capitalist system, all it does is create evil all the way down the line. You feel this way in life now because that's all you've ever known is caring about it. I've never cared about what everybody had. I've always looked at people when they say, well, man, I want what he's got. I always looked at them like, why would I want what he's got? I'm happy with what I got. I'm happy with what I got. If I want more, I'll go get me more. But I'm happy. I've never done without. Well, until now. Now I do without a lot. But that's irrelevant to me because I'm happy with what I got still. You know? It doesn't matter. It's just a new way of thinking for mankind and to get out of this indoctrination, this evil system that we have been forced upon us.
So, John,
birth.
John, hang on a second. So how do we reestablish moral order within ourselves on that basis? How do we restore a moral order? Because you're talking about physical things now. Now let's talk about moral order. How do we do that?
Moral. You start simple. You start by changing the laws. You make the laws righteous. One law. Do no harm. Other than that, we
what
don't
if I disobey that law, John? What if I disobey that law? Then who becomes the judge?
Nobody becomes a judge like that, like you're thinking. The people judge you. That is where you get a trial by jury.
Well, who chooses the people then, John? Who chooses the people to judge me?
You can choose them for all I care. I'll be honest with you.
I understand what you're saying, John, but I'm trying to look for clear, definitive answers to what you're saying because there's a lot of people out there that may not understand what you're talking about.
All we need is one simple law: do no harm. Okay, we don't need a police force to enforce it. The people all become police officers. You become You get back to that self. What's that word again? Responsibility.
Determination.
Self-responsibility.
Self-governance. Self-governance. And
responsibility. You have your own responsibility. Everybody's responsible for their own actions. If you do harm to somebody, you're responsible for it. Okay? Everybody that knows you did harm is responsible for stopping you from harming another. But other than that, there's no laws that should be out there. We don't need speed limits. It should be plain and simple understood. Hey, you drive fast, you have potential to harm somebody. So if you want to go drive fast, go to a racetrack and go spend your day over there driving as fast as you want, where you're not infliging harm on others, not endangering others. We could have a complete system all the way around. Look, if I want to drive fast today, say for instance I want to get in my car and drive fast, I don't have the ability to go to a racetrack anytime I want. So what does that leave me? Drive it on the streets, endanger other people. We don't have any choice right now, okay, over what we do. We are forced to do harm. We are forced to do things because we don't have freedom. There's no freedom in this country. If we had freedom to do what we wanted to do in a safe way, without regulation, without having to pay for it, without being restricted from it, we wouldn't be doing it.
So define for me compliance versus self-governance. A good thing to read up and look up is governance versus self-compliance, a brief history of two governance paradigms. It's very good. It just doesn't work, John. It just doesn't work. You're talking about people.
When you got a leader. If you got leaders in charge, no system works. You know that, right?
Well, that's tribalism, John. Throughout the history of mankind on Earth, whether or not you believe in the Bible or not, we've all been created from somewhere, somehow. So, we can't get into a complete discussion here on creation because we're all going to disagree and start arguing with each other. So, therefore, let's move on here. How do we change the system today that we have in America? And then you got to remember, how do we comply or get along with the rest of the global community? And there we get up to our one world order. I understand what you're saying, John, but you're not giving me any solutions here.
What do you mean? We stand up. We take control of our country.
Well, you're saying let's terminate the bartering system. When I asked you what do we replace it with, you said nothing. So we replace the bartering system. Yeah. John, you know as well as I do, common sense. If the guy next door neighbor to mine, if I say, hey, friend, I'm sick, and my neighbor says, don't bother me right now, I'm sleeping, and he and I get into a squabble or a conflict, it's just human nature, man. It's not going to work. But anyway, to get to the Constitution.
It's human nature to take care of each other, to look out for your neighbor. The problem is we can't do it in this system. This system that they created, it makes it impossible. It keeps us divided. We don't have to keep this divide. We can't make any good change. As long as this government is in charge, there will never be good change in this country. It's always going to be for the worst. It always has been, always will be. We have to stand up, take control. Then we make change at one time, one hard change, 180. And we change the way the people.
What about those people who don't want to change, John? What about those people who don't want to change?
Let them choose the way they want to go, man. You got to believe in freedom. Let them do what they want. Let them do what they want. Worry about self-accountability. Let them do what they want. Worry about self-accountability. When it becomes a problem.
Let them do what they want, John, and your next-door neighbor walks in and shoots your wife in the head. How did that work out real well? Because it's going to happen.
That's doing harm. That's doing harm. I expect me and every neighbor and everybody in my town to stop that person.
Well, hang on, John. Let's do hypotheticals here. Okay, so your next door neighbor walks in and shoots your wife in the head. Well, I'm your other neighbor across the street, and I say, hey, I don't care. Hey, I don't care. Good for him. It's not my problem. Get off my front porch. So what happens to me? Am I guilty just like the person who shot your wife in the head? How does that work, John? Because nobody's all going to agree. Nobody's going to agree. We're seeing a perfect example of that right here on this talk show. We're not going to 100% agree. Yep.
Do you really think in a society where people are working for each other and no longer having a reason to fight, that nobody's going to help each other? I know one thing. I spent my life.
No, John. All right, let me answer that question, John. Hang on. You're giving me a question, then making a comment. Hang on. I say yes. There are people out there who will not be willing to help you. We see evil in the world. We see hatred, and we see jealousy. It's just the way it is. It doesn't matter how much you have or how much least you have of something. There's hatred and jealousy in the world, no matter how much you have or how much you don't have. And you see that. You know that, John. But go ahead now.
Okay,
Look at the people who are running our government now. They don't want to help you. They want to use the government as a weapon to beat you down.
Exactly. We have all the hatred and jealousy because of the system we're in. Let's abolish the system. Let's start one that eliminates all that. A tribal system. Look, go to work 20 hours a week, people. That's all you'd be asked to do. If 100% of us that work for the betterment of each other, we will be providing so much that there's not going to be a value to food. Food is in an abundance. Water will be in abundance. Clean water, clean air, good medical.
Who provides that for you, John? Who provides that for you? Tribal systems have not worked in the past. That's been tried. Tribal systems are not going to work.
They worked until we brought this system in and totally exterminated them, genocided them. They were working just fine. The land was prospering. The people were prospering.
When were they working just fine? John, let me play devil's advocate here. When were they working just fine?
Before we came to this country. Before England
John,
came to
come on now. What about the Roman Empire? They were before America was even created. That worked out real well.
Example. An example.
No, I got to disagree with you there.
It's a warmongering nation. The Roman Empire, a warmongering nation. Same thing we have today. We have the Roman Empire. We got Hitler today. We got all the things that we've always had in the past destructive, and you're using them as an example not to do the right thing. That we should continue doing this.
John, you still there? Well, let me answer John's question. I'm looking up through my theological notes here. Are you fighting for tribal reform? We want to hear from you. Tribal systems have never worked throughout human history, and it's not just because of America. You could look at all the societies throughout global history. Look at world history. You got to study world history and really figure out that. And you can go to top scientists, top people, scholars who've studied this stuff for a long time. Constitutional reform was the greatest form of government that came, and you're now saying, John, that that's wrong, that the people that came here to America were wrong, because so you're kind of contradicting yourself right there, because you were talking about the Constitution in the beginning.
The Constitution was the best they could do at the time, and we were stuck with the monetary system because we had no way of stopping it. Now we have a way of stopping it.
The Constitution, we had the monetary system at the time the Constitution was created was under a republic form of government during that time. And then we became a democracy through being hijacked through the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. And then it became a monopoly scheme. We're going all over the place here, but does anyone here have anyone else want to jump into the conversation? Press the number 1 here. We're getting very deep here into what we can do to change and understand the times in which we live in today. What can we do to change? And go ahead, sir. Go ahead, John Doe.
John.
Yeah, over the last several weeks of listening to your show and 3 or 4 times I've been able to talk on it, I'm the only one that proposed any practical application to do something, and it was to say all of us get together, make our phone calls to our congressmen and representatives and emails or get in touch with them however you want to.
But that's not going to work, John Doe. How could you call a congressman that doesn't represent you? The congressman represents the Federal Reserve Banking Cartel.
Wait up. Let me finish what I was saying.
All right, go ahead. I'll let you finish. Go ahead. Go ahead, John Doe. Go ahead.
It's like John. He's got all these great ideas. He ought to write a book, because he's got so much there that we can't talk about it in a 2-hour show. But the point of it is once we all decide together to on a particular day and time, November the 1st, 2019, everybody group together and flood the emails and flood the Twitter feeds and flood the Facebook feeds and flood the phone calls with everything saying, hey, we get line item veto power from here on out, or we will not respect any of the rules, laws, processes, and procedures, because you've already committed extrinsic fraud and fraudulent misrepresentation, so you've nullified the Constitution as it is. And start from there. That's the only practical application of anybody that's given in the last several weeks on this show.
Okay, well, let me explain how that works, okay? I took part in something like that. When President Trump got in office, we all started emailing, texting, tweeting him, sending him letters about Department of Children and Families kidnapping our children. It was being done every day, all day long by thousands, if not 1 million Americans, okay? So what did he do? He addressed the issue. He got on the news, okay, and he says, okay, we're going to address the child trafficking problem. In other countries, and by the refugees coming in, by these immigrants that are coming in illegally trafficking children, we're going to address that. And we're going to give the Department of Defense $100 million more every year in their budget. This is exactly what he did. But nobody that tweeted him, nobody that addressed him was saying anything about that. We were talking about the United States kidnapping children with the Department of Children and Families, using the officers that just got $100 million, that he gave them a bonus for kidnapping our children. You cannot.
We can't make out what you're saying, John. You're breaking up so bad.
Yeah, I know, John. We can't make out what you're saying. You need to calm down, brother.
Yeah, well, let me tell you something. It does not work to deal with this evil. We tweeted this man. He came out and he threw the issue to the American people like it was somewhere else. And then he gave more money to the problem we were all complaining about and made it 100 times worse. Then he reformed the foster system to where now we're not going to put them in foster homes. We're going to put them in private homes. Okay, but we're going to give them a biggest increase they ever had financially to keep them in private homes. But the problem is, to get that money, you can't keep them in the homes of the family or a family member. They must be going to homes of strangers. So now there were advertisements all over everywhere, all over the news, for more foster parents. Okay? Now these pedophiles and these child traffickers apply to be a foster parent. They start receiving children 5 at a time, rotating the children they're receiving so they can traffic them. And that's what we've been dealing with since Trump got in office. Okay? Now you don't have to actually adopt a child to get paid for them to make money. Now the system is making money off of giving the children to the traffickers, and they get an extra bigger bonus for it. And then that's it. It's the whole system. The government is not here for you. You will never find a single person in government that is going to do anything to make this country better for the people. You can do whatever you want peacefully. All you're going to do is get trampled. Okay? All the things that you're suggesting
John.
doing are the
all right,
same
everybody
thing.
can sit back. Okay, all right, John, let me interject here real quick. As the host of the podcast.
One last thing. All the things that he is suggesting is the exact same action we have been doing for 200 years. It's not working. But let's keep suggesting the same action. That's not right. Okay, go ahead.
All right, John. First of all, it's not working because a lot of people don't understand the difference between de facto and de jure system, a de facto and de jure system. You have to understand, you were talking about the Constitution earlier. How do we restore our Constitution? I know Mandela Khan's probably stomping his feet right now because he wants to get in, and I want to bring him in after I make this point here and see what, and then everyone think, because we still got a lot of time left in this show. This is what I always promote. How are we going to restore our republic? Okay? Now, let me just read something here from you real quick here. It's not going to take that long, but I'm going to explain everything lawfully for you because some of you believe in the Constitution. Okay, you might be surprised to know that all of you have acquired dual citizenship. Sort of. You see recently a new country with a new government was created in which you and I are citizens. It just so happens this new country is coincides, with the one in which I always thought I resided, the United States of America. This country, which was created by the superior minds, well smarter people than I, because I didn't know you could just create a new country to replace your old one anytime you like, is called the Republic of the United States of America. And it has at least one former state senator of Iowa who has joined it as a member of its new alternative Senate, Randy Shanahan. A Republican state Senate candidate in Iowa has decided to bow out of the race and become a U.S. senator of an alternative form of government, and that is the Republic. In a letter released Friday, Randy Shanahan informed supporters of her new position as U.S. Senator in the Republic of the United States of America. You see, according to Shanahan, the U.S. government has been acting unlawfully as the official government, which clearly is not. Actually, things may get a little dicey here. Since the Republic doesn't recognize the federal government of the United States of America, in addition, I have to assume the federal government is unlikely to roll over and disappear. Despite the announcement by the Republic's founders and the federal government and all its agencies, powers, military forces, etc., it doesn't lawfully exist and hasn't for a very long time, actually since 1871. Okay, real quick, I'm about ready to finish up. In concern for all of humanity, we the people re-inhabited our lawful de jure, meaning by right of legal establishment, government on March 30th, 2010, by serving notice on the de facto corporation known as the United States, USC 28, Section 3002, number 15A. United States means a federal corporation. The United States was incorporated February 21st, 1871. 16 Statute 419, Chapter 62, 41st Congress, 3rd Session. The purpose being an act to provide government for the District of Columbia, recognized June 8th, 1878. 20, Statutory Law 102, Chapter 180, 45th Congress, 2nd Session. As in act providing a permanent form of government for the District of Columbia, a.k.a. U.S. Inc., Uniform Commercial Code UCC 9-307. Paragraph H states, location of the United States. The United States is located in the District of Columbia. Okay? A lawful grand jury in each of the 50 republics created a new Declaration of Independence that was lawfully served on the corporate United States, informing them that the original de jure government was restored. We have claimed our right to exist as free and independent people in our land, thus exercising our God-given unalienable rights as defined in our Constitution and Bill of Rights. Okay? Now, a lot of people don't understand what I just read. Okay? They don't get it. Republic states intended offices for blah, blah, blah. Hang on here so people can understand. For the first time since 1868, by the will of we the people, the de facto United States Corporation was unlawfully established by the 41st Congress in 1871 by deceptive means and without proper consent from we the people. The American people were placed under involuntary servitude by a legal system of laws that have continually violated the Constitution for the United States of America, Bill of Rights, and the Declaration of Independence. The corporate constitution was changed from the original form, where amendments were unlawfully added. Okay? And this is where they have their abuse of power, John, that you're talking about. Okay? The abuses of this corporation upon both the international community as well as the American people are unmistakable and unconscionable. De facto Congress repeatedly violated their oaths of office, fiduciary responsibilities in many cases. Committed treasonous acts against we, the people of the United States of America and the world. So according to the Republic and blah, 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 we'll get on to that more. But people need to understand you have no Constitution anymore. You have it, but you're not using it. You live under a de facto system right now. Do you understand that? The original United States has been usurped by a separate and different United States formed in 1871, which only controls the District of Columbia and its territories, which is actually a corporation. That's why you can't have no constitutional rights no more, John. Look at Downs versus Bidwell, 182 U.S. 244, 1901. Look at those. Okay, the original Constitution was never removed. It has simply been dormant since 1871. Okay, it is still intact to this day. This fact was made clear by the Supreme Court Justice Marshall Harlan. Downs versus Bidwell, again, 182 U.S. 244, 1901. By giving the following dissenting opinion, this is what Bidwell says. This is what they say. Two national governments exist, one to be maintained under the Constitution with all its restrictions, the other to be maintained by the Congress outside and independently of that instrument. See, this is where I start talking about the Republican stuff, and a lot of you people don't understand. This is where we get into the Federal Reserve Act, blah, 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 and all that stuff. You have the Constitution right now, but you're not using it. There is a remedy. You need to wake people up and understand what I just read. And there's much more here, but like John Doe said, it's too hard to cover on a two-hour show. You have to understand that by ratifying the 14th Amendment in 1868, okay, really enslaved us. And you have to understand this. You have to understand the law. You have to understand all this stuff. If you want your Constitution back, John from Mississippi, you have to get this stuff. But, because we're really technically under military tribunal law right now. That's why they can pull you over with their police officers. That's why they can turn on their emergency lights, pull you over, electrocute you, shoot you, and kill you, and kidnap you. You need to understand all this stuff. And then the rabbit hole goes so much deeper with Social Security, the Federal Reserve Act, all the wars we have fought since then. People don't understand the Civil War. They don't understand why it was truly fought. I think that's the best way I could possibly explain it in a 2-hour show. But people need to understand that the Constitution is there. Go ahead, John Doe.
Yeah, understanding that they had no legal binding.
And I see 662 also. I see 662. But go ahead, John Doe.
Yeah, Joseph Gibson. Recognizing the fact that they had no legal binding authority or jurisdiction in order to enact that 1871 Corporation Act, you and I are not responsible for that, because they had no authority to bind you or the rest of us, so it's nullified. There has to be a promise and consideration, and it has to be accepted by mutual consent by the parties involved.
You enter into a contract. You enter into contracts with these people every single day. Do you have a driver's license, John Doe? And why do you sign your driver's license? You enter into a contract to abide all their statutory. You don't stop at a stop sign. You go 60 in a 55-mile-an-hour zone. That gives them the authority to pull you over, handcuff you, or write you a ticket, or take you to court, and then the rabbit hole goes deeper there. If you don't pay your fine, they'll kick down your front door and haul you away to prison. It's called contracts. You are entering into a contract.
But Joseph, isn't that deception, and therefore we are not bound by that because they used deception, and we have a legal defense of contributory negligence.
We allowed ourselves to be decepted, so therefore we are guilty of ignorance, aren't we? So therefore, why are we yelling and screaming at Washington D.C.? Why are we yelling and screaming at Washington D.C. and all these politicians and stomping our feet when we are awoken and we understand the sleeping giant has deceived us, why are we not going out there and waking people up? Isn't that our responsibility, John from Mississippi? You were talking about helping your neighbor out. Why are we not waking people up to this and showing them black and white documented evidence? It's there. It's there. You can go to any law library. You can go to any courthouse. It's there. Why are you standing in front of a black-robed priest in a courtroom because you were deceived and I'm just using this as an example, the driver's license thing. The contracts go way deeper. It goes back to your birth certificate. It goes back to the monetary system. It goes way deeper than that. But, I just use that as one example.
Objection.
All right, Mandela Khan, you can object, but Mandela Khan, you've been sitting patiently, but I do have another number here. Let me get to them, and then you're next, okay? All right, go ahead, 662.
Hey, this is John, man. I had to switch phone.
Oh, okay. All right, well, Mandela Khan's on the phone right now. Go ahead, Mandela Khan. He objects to all this. Let's see what he has to say.
All right. The exigency of the international commercial administrative remedy of the Ethiopian total recall of the matriarch, which is Class Action 567. This is not a request. I demand, based on my patience, discipline, and control. I've been on the line for an hour listening to you three musketeers under your Constitution or under your God and Constitution or whatever it is that you put forth, and I didn't offer a peep, not one word, that I interfere with your affairs. So this is not a request. This is a demand for 10 minutes, unhindered, unfettered, with no, white power being mentioned, or no nigga, or whatever, the N-word. 10 minutes, unhindered, unfettered, by no frenemy combatant. And that's what I consider you guys there, a frenemy combatant.
All right, stop criticizing us and take your 10 minutes, Mandela Khan. Go ahead.
Okay. Here's what I know and I can prove. And I got a right to talk to you this way because I done earned my stripes as the chosen son of the total recall of the matriarch, altogether different than everything y'all said for over an hour. And here's why that's the executive order of the exigency, because Class Action 567 is the matriarch. And, of course, you guys are not there. And that's not where you're at. That's not where you are as it relates to jurisprudence in this country because of your selective amnesia and your jingoism on what you perceived is the Declaration of Independence, Bill of Rights, Constitution, and some might even throw in the Bible. But we reject that. Who is we? That's we the people, by the people, for the people, of the people, of Class Action 567, which recalls, reclaims, reacquires the birthrights before the contracts and the negotiations of this is what we have and this is what we're going to work with. This is the greatest thing that ever happened. And this is where we begin and we don't end. Here's where it's null and void. And this is why the Class Action of 567 is the executive order, the exigency. And the exigency comes from the common law court, the supreme law of this land. It's in harmony with international law, which means that whoever honors the contract here must honor the contract of the sovereignty and integrity and dignity of the other nations' constitutions. That means that you would not violate their sovereignty, integrity, and dignity with your ego status of being like a pigeon or a hawk to swoop down on them and drop some of your shit on them, right? So that's international law. And then you're ready for bingo, powerball, jackpot. That's natural law. That comes from the Creator herself, right? Now, I know this, that when it comes to equal protection under the law, we had a case just the other day where for the first time in the history of jurisprudence in this country, there was a woman who went in another man's house and killed him, even though she was interacting with him. They won't tell you that they had a sexual relationship, but I can tell you that because I know, right? But the bottom line is that never in the jurisprudence under the United States of America has, during the trial, this is what happened. And it reminds me of South Carolina when this guy, Dylan Roof, a state-sponsored terrorist, wasn't alone. He wasn't a Lone Ranger. Went in and killed Senator Clemenza and 8 other people. And the day after that, the whole church was forgiving Dylan Roof and praying to God that he repent and try to get some beneficence from his murder, right? Now, that was the church that was supposed to be a sanctuary, a place of refuge and protection. And I know that anybody who didn't like O.J. Simpson, ain't none of y'all would ever forgive O.J. Simpson and the Golden family. And the significance of the case of this woman who shot another man, she was a cop or whatever, but the bottom line is this. In the adjudication of the case, not only did the bailiff stroke her hair, black bailiff, not only did the black family of the murderer hugged her and said, well, I forgive her right then and there, but the judge that's supposed to be there for equal protection under the law, who already witnessed the fact that an unarmed, innocent person was murdered, the judge, a female, a woman, a black woman, got down and hugged this murderer. Never in the history of murder has anyone ever perpetrated that fraud and deceit where there is no equal protection under law. How could it be that there's not a illegal alien European invader or a white man, a boy or girl? If a black person that killed your family member, I don't care if the person got 1 day, 10 years, or 100 years, they would never be forgiven. And they damn sure wouldn't be hugged in the source of a child. This is unprecedented. That means that this shit is staged, activated, orchestrated, and presented to create emotional upheaval, to create some racial divide, to create a civil war by the state-sponsored terrorists themselves. Now, I'm not against no judges under jurisprudence of equal protection. I'm not under no illusion that bailiffs should be compassionate to this and that such as, but you know and I know that if a gang member, a Crip or a Blood, or Raheem, Jose, Junebug, and Aaliyah charged with murder, there's no way that a white bailiff or even a black bailiff would be stroking the hair of little Lakeisha, Natasha, and Fortia, right? I know better, and I know that there's no way that even if the black perpetrator would have killed a black child, there's no way that you done seen the world's wild, scariest courtroom dramas, and you see everybody jumping past the bailiffs and all the constables and jumping at the judges and jumping at the attorneys and jumping at the perpetrator. How could it be that the judge presiding in jurisprudence hugged a murderer? In other words, black lives don't matter no damn where. This here is inside job of state-sponsored terrorism that goes past race. It's not about black versus white. It's about wrong versus right. And what's wrong is that we got a tyrannical government that is imploding inside on its own people, while others are saying, well, look, if it ain't happened to me, I don't know what you're talking about, Mandela. I don't see nothing wrong, you know. Well, she got 10 years. Okay, there's people getting life for stealing jackets, for stealing pizza. There's people getting 100 years for 3 strikes you're out, you know, double jeopardy. That means that you're going to charge me for what I did in the past. So now you say, well, look, Mandela, you're a triple felon, and now you deserve life because we can charge you for the double jeopardy, but triple jeopardy for the 3 or 4 times you messed up in the past. That is not equal protection under the law. That's why this thing has to be destroyed. We can't tweak it. You can't fix it and put some bad white ones out and put some good black ones in. It's the system. The system is rotten to the core. And here's what I agree on because of the matriarch. What John is suggesting, that's him. And really, I wish him much success. This is an election year. He talking about, he say, November 2020 on the 2nd. Y'all know that it's going to be very difficult with the mental illness of people trying to see who's going to select in this crooked Ponzi scheme of monopoly and greed, and that he's going to put himself on the line to say, well, I'm putting it out here for the 2nd. But not being specific, exact, and exclusive like the matriarch, we said all the tyrants have to be arrested and the people's government formed in the first 48 hours under the solidarity of what? The committee of one or committee of the whole. So voting and all that crooked stuff is over, right? So by me telling you, Joe Gibson, like I told Tyrone 7 years ago, that this executive order goes directly through the matriarch. Mandela Khan can't authorize no date. Farrakhan can't, Barack Obama or Nelson Mandela or whoever, Jesse Jackson. If I authorize a date and it don't go down, then I'm just as guilty as putting forth a lot of information that gets people excited.
All right, Mandela Khan, you brought up jurisprudence there. You brought up jurisprudence there.
Hold on, there ain't no 10 minutes. Hold on, you interrupted.
It's pretty close, Mandela Khan, pretty close.
Okay, well, let me wind it up there. Because, see, what I'm telling you is this. Class Action 567 is the stolen legacy that was hidden, put in that sentient idol. It wasn't what whites did to blacks or blacks did to whites. It was wrong for any man, including me, to take control of Mother Earth. That's what I'm here to help you remember, or what you don't want to recognize. Because the fact of the matter is that under 7 years and 3 years, you don't know that I told y'all about the total recall. The total recall. I told you about the day we're going to set this nation down and get the redress in the transition of power in the first 48 hours. And then here comes John giving you some date and this and that and such and such. You already know. I told you the same things he's telling you, but I told you I can't even authorize that. That goes directly to the mothers and grandmothers and great-grandmothers who are witnessing their families being destroyed from Maine to Florida, Washington State to California, from the UK to the Republic of Kentucky. That is exactly, precisely how y'all will get out of this. But I do hope whatever you and John and the other guys who talk about some line item veto, that's keeping everything as it is. When it's said and finally done, still the Masonic order and the matriarch and the Masonic order of the patriarch going to still be controlled. That's not what we're here for. We're here to destroy, pluck off, and root up the tyrants. And the tyrants are black men and white men who cannot serve and protect their women and children nowhere on the planet under this social system of capitalism based on imperialism, where monopoly, corruption, and greed, to the victor goes the spoils, and we got a right and a duty to rape, pillage, and plunder under the name of God and country. So I'm going to rest her case right there, and I'm not going to debate with nobody. I'm not going to quibble or wild no vomit. And like I said, my patient discipline.
I know, Mandela Khan, you will not be questioned. You're the judge. I understand.
No. I'm saying ain't nobody right until we get freedom, justice, and total independence. So if y'all think you're right, and what these dates you put out of these times, you say what a new world order is this? Well, just Russia gonna do that, China gonna do that. You're excluding we the people, by the people, for the people, and we in the Valley Decision. And this time, we the people got to be right. So if anybody that ain't never spoke here, please push one and give these guys a peace of mind based on the people's bloodless revolution. We don't need to carry no guns when we go get these tyrants. There's enough weapons all in the street already.
You're going to have to, Mandela Khan. I mean,
no. Not going to happen. Not going to happen.
A couple times you brought up China. You know, Mandela Khan, I was doing a lot of research on organ harvesting. China, one of the number one countries in the world that keep people alive to steal their organs to sell them on the market.
You got to shift the way.
But you keep yelling about the United States. China is just an evil empire, just like the United States.
This is where you're I call y'all the closet Klansmen, because here's what you do. You want to give white power a pass for the genocide, the atrocities, state-sponsored terrorism, the war on drugs, and the war on terrorism.
There's no such thing as white power anymore. It's about the central bankers around the world that control everything.
Listen, let me tell you this. I'm not going to debate you. There's no such thing as racism and white supremacy. No, that's a damn lie. That's a damn lie. There's no such thing as white supremacy.
Well,
white power is real under capitalism based on imperialism. Under capitalism based on imperialism, under your World Bank and the IMF and the Federal Reserve, are you telling the people that somebody like me is orchestrating this genocide on the human family? Are you telling me that?
I don't want to be in this.
Are you orchestrating it? I think sometimes your words are
I'm not going to hey, listen. I'm not going to be vetted.
You won't allow me to answer the question.
No.
First of all,
there is no question.
Jurisprudence. How does jurisprudence reflect on class action 567? What does jurisprudence have to do with class action 567?
First, taxation without representation is tyranny and equal protection under the law. Anybody that's not Ray Charles, Stevie Wonder, Helen Keller, and Jose Feliciano can see there is a two-tiered injustice system. Okay?
So you're saying jurisprudence seeks to reveal the historical, moral, and cultural bias of a particular legal concept. Is that what you're saying?
No, there's no third party ventriloquist interpreter. I'll tell you what I say, and if you don't want to accept it, then that's okay. But I'm not going to let you steer it and make it sound like I said what you said.
What does jurisprudence mean?
I know, but you're not going to find out as long as you keep interfering and trying to block, tackle, and promote the growth, development, and the evolving to where we are now. We're class action 567 of the matriarch, right? See, that's what you're scared of. That's really what you're scared of, the word matriarch. See, that turns everybody.
Oh, you're right. I don't want no prime minister ruling over me. I don't want no matriarch ruling over me. You're right. I don't want no prime minister telling me what to do.
I know that part. That part I know.
Well, that's
why
what
you
a
fight hard as
matriarch
you can. Okay, I know that part. That's why you fight, just like John, just like all of y'all. You keep putting your dictatorial ways about it.
You hate America so much. What do you want to replace?
There you go. Listen. That's not true. That's a damn lie. I hate there's a difference because you're lying. I hate the United States of America, the Confederate flag, and the red, white, and blue. I don't hate America. I don't hate America. See, that's where y'all go with your bullshit.
Oh, okay. So you love America. Okay, I did not know that.
No,
you love America. Okay.
I did not say that. Listen, why do you want to be a fucking ventriloquist?
I'm asking you a question. Do you love or hate America?
I hate what the Confederate flag, any red, white, and blue flag, from John's red, white, and blue flag to your red, white, and blue flag. I hate what the United States of America came and started, which is a selective amnesia, because we had great civilizations before your asses got here with that bullshit.
Yeah, I know, like the Roman Empire. That was a good one. Or how about Mao from China? That was a good civilization.
There you go again. I'm talking about the eagle who said, I'm God. I got the power of God. I got the power of life and death for the world. I got the atomic bomb. I'll kill everything on the planet Earth if I don't get my way.
I never said I got power over the world, or Mandela kind.
The eagle has already shown that they dropped 2 bombs on people of color while Hitler was kicking your ass up in Europe.
Well, China's got a lot of bombs too, Mandela Khan. So what are we supposed to do?
There you go. Let me ask you this.
I got a question for you. Can you answer one question?
Let me ask you one question. No, me first. When are you going to find me a bad boogeyman, a dictator, a tyrant, a warlord that's an illegal alien European invader or a so-called white person? When the hell are you going to show me a bad guy that's white?
George Bush.
That's a damn lie.
Answer the question. Now,
that's a damn lie.
Answer my question. If America decided to give up all its nuclear weapons and atomic bombs, well, what would we do then? What would we do then?
Okay,
give them all to China, give them all to Ethiopia? What would we do then?
There you go to your selective biasness. It's not. See, there's
Imagine if we gave them all to Ethiopia.
Listen.
They wouldn't know what to do.
I'm a 9th grade student, but I'm a little more intelligent than what you know. There's an international atomic agency.
A spilt milk fell down on the ground. I mean, come on now, Mandela Con. We're talking nonsense here. Let's get back to how do we understand the times which live in today. You said the European invaders. They started this whole mess. That's basically the root of this whole problem. The European invaders started this whole mess.
There's an international atomic agency that where not one nation has jurisdiction on now the world prevents nuclear annihilation. Now you know about
So what nation should have jurisdiction? Ethiopia, right?
Most people go look up MAD, MADD, and look up the International Atomic Agency's international program. Now here's what you're not telling the people. You're telling them that you're trying to disarm America. No, I'm not. I'm trying to disarm you wizards of Armageddon. And perhaps this nation got some nuclear weapons, and that was, but we know.
Well, I don't know if the Bible. I don't think anywhere in the Bible does it say to nuke Ethiopia or whatever. So I don't know what you're talking about there. But
hey, well, you the one said something about some damn Bible. I'm not with the Bible throwing the Quran or Hebrew is like Muslims and Christians. Your religion is worse
I know,
than
you're
dope,
with
man.
Flags Action 567, and that's what we're trying to find out. Now, let me bring John. Mandela Con, I gave you 10 minutes. Now, let's bring John back on. Go ahead, John. You're back on the floor.
Yeah, bring your cohort back on.
Hey, how you
doing?
doing?
Well, I gave you what you asked. What do you want? You want 30 minutes, Mandela Con? What do you want?
No.
I mean,
Listen,
I
know
what
in your
you
club, in your clan club, and in your good old boy network, y'all gonna dominate your
program.
I
don't think John is a clan.
I'm gonna jump in on behalf of the matriarch because there's only one person who speaks on behalf of the matriarch. Only one person speaks on behalf of the matriarch, and that's me. And I'm gonna fight you, gang members, until we're free.
Bring them on. Where are they, Mandela Con?
Okay.
Bring them on.
No, there's only one voice that represents the matriarch, and I'm gonna fight you, gang members, no matter how y'all. Listen,
May I cut in a minute?
You're too schizophrenic. You're too schizophrenic, and you're too schizophrenic, and you don't even know when you're on and when you're not on. I'm saying, listen. There's no consistency in when you're on and when you're not.
Like you asked.
Oh, hey, Joe,
you're more than
there's no
welcome to stay on the
consistency.
podcast, but if you keep interrupting, I'm going to have to mute you. Now, come on,
okay,
now.
Well, let's do this.
I gave you 10 minutes
let's
like
do
you
this.
asked.
You know, my assignment was to get 11 million people, and since we put it forth on behalf of the matriarch, it's been diverted to something else. And I'm insist with you about that, man. Ain't no way you're going to organize nobody, because John and whatever, ain't no other voices but in your usual suspect.
You're not going to organize 3 people to get a cup of coffee in the morning. That's how I see it. But anyway, go ahead, John.
My track record doesn't speak that you are lying. My track record speaks that you are lying. I'm going to shut up.
A lot of good things, man. Miguel Khan, you said a lot of good things, man. There's a lot of things there that made a lot of sense, and it was really good, and I do appreciate it. Look, I'd still like to address what I was talking about with John Doe. You know, the things that he's proposing is the same actions that we have been exercising for over 200 years now, and that has not worked. Why would we continue doing that? We have to correct our course of action. The only thing that's worked in this country ever, okay, or in any country, is a revolution. And it works very well. And now we have the power because we have the Bill of Rights that said that we were allowed to keep guns and the government hasn't been able to take them all from us, that we have the power to stand up in force large enough to where the government will have to stand down because they can't use our military against us because you cannot order the United States military to bomb the United States. They won't do it. That goes against everything the military is about. They can't do that. They know that. The people are afraid, they'll bring tanks in. They won't bring tanks in. They tried to militarize the police forces, but they can only do small armament, like vehicles that will carry troops. They don't have tanks, okay? And we have the numbers to where no matter what they got, it wouldn't do them any good. They don't have the numbers. They would have to employ over 50% of the United States to become police officers in order to have the numbers to stand up against the people. Okay? So we're good. We're good. We have our guns. We have an opportunity for freedom to liberate our country again from this oppression. This oppression is way beyond anything it ever was in the past. We revolted last time for a lot less than what we're going through now. We have technology. We need to use it to our advantage, people. not to our disadvantage. It's not a weapon of war. It shouldn't be for destruction. It should be for the betterment of mankind, for each of us. You know, this technology, the facts that we can automate production, it should go directly to the people, not to somebody that owns that factory, because all these companies are owned by the same elites. If you track down all the corporations or the big companies that are doing everything here in this country, they're all owned by the same elites, the Rothschilds, the whatever the other guys, Sornos, or whatever his name is. They're all owned by the same people, the same families. We're under a monopoly, and they've got total control. And the only way we're ever going to get change is if we take control. The only way we can take control is by exercising the Second Amendment, united as all of us together. You know, and then if we do it with a large enough number, they will have no choice but to stand down. For every police officer there is in a town, there are, 4,000 citizens, 10,000 citizens? You know, it doesn't take many of us to stand up and outnumber them and say, okay, we're not taking this anymore. We're going with freedom. But what are we going to do afterwards? That's the big thing. We can't make the same mistakes. We can't say, oh, this is how it's always been done. Let's keep doing it, because look what it always brought. Brought it to Rome. It brought it to every civilization. Every government has got the same thing, because we've always done the same systems. Give somebody the power because somebody wants that power. Definitely anybody that wants to be in that position of power shouldn't be in that position of power. That's obvious. So we go on where we retain the power of the people. 100% transparency. We control our military. We don't disband our military, but we control it. We don't put somebody in charge of it and just give them a free rein to do secret attacks on us, to blame it on someone else because they control the media, they control everything, and they just manipulate us. We can't allow this to happen anymore. All we have to do is learn from the past. The monetary system and how they have gotten away with it. Go ahead.
Yeah, John,
go ahead, John.
Great. Well, thank you, Mr. Gibson. John, great points, and I appreciate your feedback and even challenging me, because that's what helps all of us grow, myself included. And I am also tired of calling my congressmen and my senators and my presidents and making pleas for, hey, let's correct this stuff, and it goes nowhere. So I understand beating your head against the wall and going nowhere, and I'm sorry that, for those people who may have suffered under CPD and getting their kids pushed into foster care and stuff. That is definitely a violation of human rights, and we need to correct it. And I'm curious, though, when you say we the people, what are you talking about? What group, what percentage of we the people? 100% of us, or 75% of we the people, or just the elected group, or just who's the we the people when you refer to it?
When I say we the people, I'm talking about the working class, the lower class, the middle class, and the upper class, not the ruling class. The ruling class are not part of we the people. Once somebody gets elected in office, they're no longer part of we the people by law. They are now separate us. They are our enemy. The Constitution was even written that before it was ratified, the Constitution was written and said it would not be ratified until we had the Bill of Rights, and it was ratified. Then the whole Constitution was ratified. But in that last statement, when they said that, there was a thing in there that says, once this is ratified, once the Bill of Rights is entered, it is not to be changed again. They don't have authority to add or take from it ever again. This was supposed to be our founding documents. All they have done is go into this document that restricted their power, that they had no power over us, and start saying, okay, Congress has got the power for this. Congress has got the power over this. Congress has got the power over this. This is no longer your rights. Now it's a privilege we're going to have, and we're going to give it to you as we see fit. And they've been charging us, and they've been taking over all our freedoms. That's how they took it away. The Constitution is a good document, the original. But it also states in there that they were not to add or take away from it. And all they've done is add amendments, add sections here and there, giving themselves power that they were restricted of having. So when you can't put people in power in places like that, because that's what they do. They didn't do it right away. It took time. The first 20 years, I'm sure it was left alone mostly. But then they started, little by little. A lot of it was done during holidays. A few of the cabinet members would stay behind. The majority in the room could make a decision. and they would just stay behind when everybody went on vacation and say, okay, now we can get away with pushing in this evil over America. And they would do it. And then nobody would even realize it was there. So 30 years later, when they said, look, this is here, it's on the books, it's on the records, we got the right to enforce it. They've been patiently taking over this country. But we have to, man. The Bill of Rights, the way to bring grievance to government is the First Amendment, to correct your course of government. That's what it's about. It's not about the freedom of religion so much. The second half of it, the bottom half, is about how you bring grievance, correct the course of your government. Now, when they don't correct, which we are exercising that every day, have been for hundreds of years, and they have not corrected yet, not once. It is our duty to exercise the Second Amendment. We the people. That means every working person, every free person in this country is to exercise their gun rights to bring change in government and abolish it if necessary. Okay? Correct the course of government or abolish it if necessary.
First of all, John, how could we have been so blind all these years? The good thing is we don't have to abide by any constitutional amendments passed after 1860 or any federal laws or Supreme Court decisions interpreting those laws. In fact, we aren't really citizens at all. Hang on, John.
No.
We are each of us individual. Go ahead, John.
1791. I'm sorry. After 1791. No, it was actually 1791 when the Bill of Rights was entered, and it was not to be altered or anything else.
You're missing the whole point, John, that I'm trying to make. Everything after 1860 is null and void. You got to understand, you're a corporate citizen right now. You are ratified by the 14th Amendment.
You're missing John's point, though, Joseph. You're missing John's point. Since 1791, the Bill of Rights was ratified, but ever since then, nobody's actually operated by it. So they've been nullifying it ever since in violation of it. That's what his point is.
Right. It's all been null and void by the supreme law of the United States of America, anything they've added after 1791. It took them adding a few little things in between there to get to the point to where they got in 1800s. And then where they got to 1913 when they finally did a really big one on us. After 1865, they flew the flag of, the martial law? That flag flying overhead declares martial law. We lost our...
That's why the Civil War was fought.
1865.
And I've been going over this 1,000 times.
Yeah.
You are incorporated now. You have to understand you are a corporate citizen right now. You have to understand you entered into a contract.
We all do. I believe
all right, well, you are contracted and obligated to follow their contracts, or they will send the Federal Reserve enforcement officers to get you.
No, we're not. Whenever they use deception to do that, it makes it the contract null and void.
Look, they're not responsible for your deception. You have individual accountability. You are accountable for what you. If you were deceived, look. If you and I are playing a card game and I con you out of something, that's your fault, not everyone else's. You've been deceived.
Our society doesn't operate by the rules of a card game, dude. That's right there in itself a violation of.
Okay. The point is, let me see if I can say this in simple law. Okay. You cannot enter somebody into a contract without their knowledge. You cannot violate a contract. Wait. No, you cannot. You must look. For me to enter into a contract with you, you must have knowledge of the contract. Okay. Now, if I decide, okay, I'm going to hold Joe Gibson as my slave, just because I decided and I write it on a piece of paper, that doesn't mean you're obligated to it, does it? No. So you can't force a contract on somebody without their knowledge. Now, the Constitution is the supreme law of the United States, still on the books today, as you said when you were reading. Still to this day, it is still the supreme law of the land. So you cannot take a lesser law to overrule the supreme law. So all the contracts and all their laws and all their games are all null and void by law. Off the top, that's how simple the argument is. You go, oh no, but you signed your driver's license, for instance. Okay, you did that under duress. We have no choice. It's under duress we're signing that. So that makes it null and void by law that we have to abide by their contract of it.
That's not true, John.
Doe.
But anyway, go ahead,
It is
John Doe. Go ahead. You can't. There's no such thing as duress. Go ahead. You're not understanding me, John. But go ahead, John Doe.
No, there is such thing as duress, too. It's the same thing as coercion and exploitation and extortion. If you use mental gymnastics to con somebody out of their rightful decision to to decide what burdens and encumbrances they are, you took advantage of their weakness. So therefore, you're saying it's okay to be bully and exploit people because they're stupider than you. That makes you just as bad as the people who are doing it to us now.
Nobody forced you to get a driver's license, John Doe. Nobody forced you to get a driver's license. You went there to the Department of Motor Vehicle voluntarily.
But Joe,
I did
society that you're growing up in.
I did not go voluntarily to the Department of Motor Vehicle. Let me explain something to you.
Look.
My first driver's license I got because I was 14 years old and I drove across the street with a motorcycle. And I got 3 tickets. They were illegally given to me, by the way, now that I know the law.
Did you sign those tickets? Did you sign those tickets? Did you appear in court?
Let me put it this way. I was a 14-year-old kid with an officer with a gun in his hand telling me to sign that or I'm going to jail. I think I'm signing the tickets under duress at this point. But, okay, I sign them. I go to the court. When I get there, I have a driver's license number at 14 years old. They suspended it. They fined me. And then from that day forward, every time they pulled me over, they took me to jail, okay, and gave me a bunch more fines and a bunch more penalties.
Wait, what do you mean they pulled you over? So you agreed to their emergency when they pulled you over? So they declared an emergency and pulled you over.
Hey, do you know what fleeing from an officer gets you? Do you know what happens when you don't stop?
You don't have to agree. You see, you don't understand contractual law, and you don't understand what I'm trying to get at here, John. You don't get it.
Contractual law. I do understand it 100%. You cannot enter into a contract unknowingly. Nobody can put you into a contract without your knowledge. I didn't get a driver's license until I was 18. By then, I already had accumulated at least 60 tickets in my record. I didn't agree to their contract any time. But you know what I did agree to? I didn't want to be locked in that cell anymore because I kept getting locked in a cell. That's what I agreed to. The fact that, you guys have a lot more force than I do. You're a bigger entity than me. You got guns, and you're freaking thousands of you, and just one of me. That is cool. That is force. It is not. We're not entering into it voluntarily. It is being forced on us. And I'm a good example that, hey, try not to and see what happens. It cost me over $20,000 to get my driver's license the first time I got it. Did you know that?
Well,
and I didn't do it voluntarily. I did it because I had no choice.
First of all, you enter into a business contract with the corporation. And, yes, you can enter into a contract unknowingly as long as you have sound mind. Okay? So you need to look up business law. Yes, you can.
Mind?
Yes, you can.
Wait,
okay.
If you have sound mind, how can you enter unknowingly?
Excuse me?
How can they enter you legally, unknowingly?
Look, you can enter into a contract unknowingly as long as you are of sound mind. That is statutory law.
Uninformed?
But that's a treasonous traitors that wrote that in there so they could justify the fact that they're going to enter you into a contract without your knowledge, and you're either going to abide to it, and they even go in there as far as saying, hey, ignorance to the law is not a defense. So just because you didn't know you were in this contract doesn't mean that you can get out of the crime. You know what I'm saying? But they wrote all that.
Does anyone want to explain contract law here tonight? Anyone want to come on? Because I just don't understand any other way to explain it to you that the day you were born, you were of sound mind and you entered into a contract. And I know this sounds crazy, but that's why you're given a certificate of birth, not an origin of birth. It's just like when you buy a car. You're given a certificate of title, not an origin of title.
It's not
and therefore you enter into and once you take that title and you file it, just say if you're buying a car, okay? You file it with the DMV, you register that car, you then enter into a contract. You're doing it knowingly. Now, are you forced to? No. No one's forcing you to get a driver's license. No one forced you to. No one forced
yes, they
you
did.
to.
They kept locking me up.
they did not. No one told you to go.
Yes, they
no,
did.
they did not.
They kept locking me up every time I drove. They did.
No,
That's
not the point.
Look at my
You
record.
have no right to drive. You have no right to travel as a United States corporate citizen, John. You have no right to travel as a corporate
United
citizen.
States corporate citizen. I'm not a corporate citizen. I am a citizen. I am a human being.
Do you have a birth certificate,
John?
John?
Born human being.
No,
Just
you're
because
not.
they wrote a piece of paper and said, no, you're a U.S. citizen.
Do you use Federal Reserve notes, John? Do you use Federal Reserve notes to barter with? You barter with those Federal Reserve notes. You are contracted in.
Only because
there's
it's the
no
only
ifs,
system in
ands, and
place.
what's about it. You are contracted in.
You don't have no choice.
I know you don't understand what I'm talking about, right? You have to dissolve all your contracts. You have to become a secured party creditor. I went over this on the Thanksgiving show, and you missed the show. You see, you don't understand what I'm talking about. Do you want to dissolve all your contracts?
I do understand their laws, but that doesn't make them right or justifiable. Go ahead, John Doe.
It's not about right versus wrong. It's not about that. It's not about that.
Yeah, that's where I agree with
You're missing the whole point, John.
It is about it. That's where I agree with McGillicuddy.
Okay.
It is about right versus wrong. Let's give John Doe a moment to speak. We keep cutting him off. I'm sorry, John.
Go ahead, John.
That's all good. I think all of us, it's really hard for each and every one of us to understand the other because we're parsing the information that we hear from others based on our own bias and understanding of those terms and definitions in our own head. Now, here's another aspect or angle that I want to consider. Now, I fall more in the side of what John's talking about, and here's why. Because from what Joseph, you're sharing, Mr. Gibson, that is fraud, in my opinion, because the very rules, when you say that this person, you can't get, you get a ticket and you signed on the dotted line. Well, number one, as an equal owner of your own governing is your intellectual property. And that intellectual property is made up of the different governing aspects of laws, rules, processes, and procedures that inform how we're going to treat each other, how we're going to relate with each other, how we're going to transact with each other. When there's a group of people that excludes you from deciding what those rules, laws, processes, and procedures are by deception, by putting those rules together in a backdoor corner, they've denied you your right of legal standing as a proper, real, and indispensable party to that agreement. So therefore, if they use deception tricks in order to force you to be bound by their instruments, then they've committed fraud against you because they've, number one, deprived you of your ownership rights of exercising your ownership responsibilities under governing of you. And nobody gets to govern you but you. You determine the governing burdens and encumbrances of you, so if they try to do that, they've automatically committed fraud.
Yep.
Amen, brother. Well said. Thank you.
Okay. All right. First of all, before we wrap up the podcast here tonight, let me give you guys let me just explain something to you, okay, very clearly. I'm not going to read the affidavit here because I did that on the Thanksgiving show. You'll have to go back and listen to that. But that's how you become a secured party creditor and relinquish all your contracts, dissolve all your contracts with the United States Treasury Department. However, that means you don't go to food stamps. That means you get rid of your driver's license, everything else, okay? You need to understand that. However, let me explain something to you right now. This was addressed by your corporation in 1976. Let me read something to you real quick, and then we'll do closing thoughts to the podcast. Since March 9th, 1933, this is actually a legal document. You could download it. You can go to any governmental website. All right, but many people don't understand it and they don't get it. Since March 9th, 1933, and this is during the Depression after the Federal Reserve bankrupted the United States Treasury Department in 1929. Again, since March 9, 1933, the United States has been in a state of declared national emergency. In fact, there are now, in effect, 4 presidentially proclaimed states of national emergency. In addition to the national emergency declared by President Roosevelt in 1933, there are also the national emergency proclaimed by President Truman on December 16, 1950, during the Korean conflict, and the states of national emergency declared by President Nixon on March 23, 1970. Okay? All right, I'm getting interrupted here. Some background noise here. All right, there we go. Okay. All right, these proclamations give force to 47 provisions of federal law. These hundreds of statutes delegate to the president extraordinary powers ordinarily exercised by the Congress, which affect the lives of American citizens in a host of all-encompassing manners. This vast range of powers taken together confer enough authority to rule the country without reference to normal constitutional processes. Under the powers delegated by these statutes, the president may seize property, organize and control the means of production, seize commodities, assign military forces abroad, institute natural law, seize and control all transportation. What did I just say? Seize and control, because we were talking about driver's license. Seize and control all transportation and communications, Facebook, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Regulate the operation of private enterprise, right, through your taxes and blah, blah, blah. Restrict travel. We just talked about that again. Okay? And in a plethora of particular ways, control the lives of all Americans every single day. All right? Now, before I get to closing thoughts here, this is the Senate Judiciary Committee that addressed the emergency powers. Let me give it to you guys so you guys can look it up for yourselves. It's still there on the internet. You guys can do it. Look it up for yourselves. Emergency powers, statutes, provisions of federal law now in effect delegating the executive extraordinary authority in time of national emergency. This was last addressed November 19th, 1973. Okay, and the co-chairman of that was Frank Church. Yeah, hang on. This was addressed to the 93rd Congress, first session, and it's report number 93-549. You are slaves, folks.
Okay.
You think you got a constitution?
Now,
you don't.
Now, let me tell you the rule of law about that. Under the supreme law of the United States of America, the Constitution, all that is null and void.
You're not under the Constitution, John. You're not under the Constitution. You're not under it. That's the whole point I was trying to explain to you.
Okay, but the point is this. They don't have the authority to take the Constitution away from us. But they're doing it. So under the Constitution, it's all null and void.
Yes, they do, because the people gave them that authority, John. That's my point.
We
the people consented.
There's a difference.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did.
No, we didn't.
Okay.
They took it by force. They just did it on their own. Congress did it.
They took it by force through the Civil War, John. Yes, they took it by force through the Civil War. So therefore, should we have another Civil War in this country?
That doesn't give
Because
them the authority.
they took it by force through the Acts of 1871, after the Civil War, John. They took it by. That's why the Civil War was fought. Look it up.
Right.
It's there. The information is there. That's why the Civil War was fought.
I hear what you're saying, but now remember this.
Not because of black man and white man and slavery and the Ku Klux Klan.
I know that. We all know that. But remember this. Google or do any research engine you want, the Constitution of the United States of America. It's going to come back. The Constitution of the United States of America is the supreme law of the United States of America. The supreme law is the key there. Everything that violates the Constitution,
John? Which Constitution? The organic Constitution or the Constitution of the District of Columbia? What are you talking about? I just threw you off right there. There are two Constitutions.
No, you didn't shut
John,
me up.
I've been sending you these links now for a long time. You should know better.
From 1791, where the Bill of Rights, the first 10 amendments were added. That's the Constitution. That's the only one that matters. All the rest is null and void.
All right, closing thoughts, everybody. Closing thoughts.
Let me get
hang on, Mandela Khan. All right, you get the first closing thoughts, Mandela Khan. Go ahead, Mandela Khan. First closing thoughts.
Thank you. Thank you. Before y'all go back to your regular scheduled program, let me put this on the table quickly. Because of the executive order, the exigency of Class Action 5672, signed, sworn, sealed affidavit that then went through the common law court, the supreme law of this land. It's all power through the people to reclaim on behalf of a committee of one, on behalf of a committee as a whole. All that quibbling, wild environment, a paralysis analysis is done. It's already a done deal. It needs massive numbers. Therefore, what we see is different because we're not going to honor no contract written on paper that does not physically apply to everyone being a participatory constituent that is good for representative service. And who is more better to represent the people? We the people, by the people, for the people, other people. So without further delay, without any more quibbling, wild environment, doing paralysis of analysis, I'm not going to do any of this because it does nobody no good. Y'all done been on for 2 hours and ain't nobody going to get together after what y'all done said. And I'm not criticizing. I'm just showing that I'm here for an assignment, and that is to overturn, not overthrow, because that's unlawful. And if you look at the supreme law of the land, which is not the Declaration of Independence, Bill of Rights, Constitution, it is the common law court. And what is the common law court? The common law court is we the people, by the people, for the people, of the people, who demand a right and a duty to equal protection, due process, and compensation for any interference with the local, county, city, state, and federal government under which it stands. So as a constitutional lawyer, which I am, I'm the poor people's Johnny Cochran, a rich case history of winning case after case after case after case against the state. And I'm on the biggest case now, is that freedom, justice, and total independence for everybody, or freedom, justice, total independence for nobody. So the exigency and the executive order has already been filed and sealed from the common law court, 6 in Market Street, to the Capitol, which is Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, of the people, who went all the way to the Supreme Court as a pro se person, and the Supreme Court in Washington gets millions of cases a year. But Class Action 567 was one of those that got through. It even got through to the World Court. That's why I told you earlier that we're in a global reset. And Class Action 567 is not exclusively for United States of American citizens. This is exclusively, but inclusive, on behalf of genocide, war crimes, crimes against humanity, cruel and unusual punishment, specific exact crimes against women and children all over the planet that's so appalling, offensive, and reprehensible, y'all can't even bring it up. This is why the case of the Ethiopian Empire covers the mothers and grandmothers and great-grandmothers' families who are witnessing their families being destroyed, knowing that there's not a man nowhere on the planet that's here to serve and protect the village. It's incapable. It's impossible under capitalism based on imperialism.
All right, everybody, you need to know if you hang up in 2 minutes, if you hang up after 2 minutes, you won't get back on because we're going to go into overtime. Mandela Khan, wrap it up, please, because I got a couple other people that want to do their closing thoughts also.
Right. Well, what I'm saying is this. How many people can, well, I don't know, what John said, he's going on the 2nd of November in the election year, this is when he's launching whatever he's launching. And I hope he's successful. I do. But don't be undaunted or what have you when the capitals are not surrounded of injustice. But in this Class Action 567, it guarantees victory. It guarantees success because it takes the people to become spiritually, politically in harmony, for they know who they are. And who are they? a committee of one, that means all the people come together and use their social media to call all other people on behalf of the committee of the whole. The committee of the whole is the people's government, and it's permanent, and they ain't going to have to vote no more because we'll know delegates when we see them by the fruit that they bear. But right now, we got tyrants. We got warlocks and warlords and rapers and pillagers and plunderers running the people's government, and we know that that's not right and it has to be overturned, and that's what we bring to the table. And it ain't going to be over, and nobody's right until the superior numbers overturn these tyrants. So I can say what the hell I want to say, and if it don't come to fruition, I'm not right. That's the deal. So I rest the case right there.
Amen,
all right,
John
Doe, you want to give some closing thoughts here, John Doe, to the podcast? Go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much. Now, Joe and everybody, check it. Go look at your legal dictionary, like Blacks or Orange or Valentine's or whoever. Look up dispossession, wrongfully putting a person off his or her property by force, trick, or misuse of the law. That is a crime. It's a fraud. And then look up arrogation, claiming something or taking something without having any right to it. So what you were talking about, these people committed dispossession by mind scam to trick you into thinking that they had legal binding authority to make you responsible to a contract that they never provided you party to. So therefore they denied you your legal standing in contract law, and then they committed arrogation by manipulating you out of your rightful property. Then they committed fraudulent conveyance to convey that power of that property to themselves in order for them to bargain with your power and use it against you. And that is fraudulent misrepresentation, because they've now in breach of their fiduciary trust agency relationship, and whenever you go into the ballot box to vote for the person that you want to be elected, whoever gets elected, they do not have the right to burden and encumber you against your will and treat you like a legislative slave. That's a fraud too. So we got to talk serious about the details here, and there's too much of us. It's going to be, what's your good word say? My people perish for the lack of knowledge. That's from the Lord right to you, Joe. In Jesus' name.
All right, John
Amen.
from Mississippi. Go ahead, John. I know you've been on for the whole show. Good, I'm glad. But go ahead, John. You get some closing thoughts here tonight. John from Mississippi, you still there?
Oh, I'm sorry. I had it on mute. I was talking to myself.
All right, go ahead.
Okay. Hey, no, John Doe sums it up very well, man. He's right. These contracts are all null and void. You can't enter a contract with somebody without their knowledge of what the contract is, without at least giving them access to the contract to read it. You can't force them, because we're forced, okay? Don't say we're not. And being born is not entering you into a contract legally. You can't enter a baby into a contract and say, okay, now you're my slave for life, because that's what you're trying to say is acceptable. And
no, the parents do it as a legal guardian.
No, parents don't do it. Parents get a birth certificate. All they know is a record of their child being born. That's what they agree to. They don't know about all the other stuff.
But that's their fault for not understanding it, John. But that's their fault for not
look what's happening now. Okay, let's look at what's happening today. A lot of people are opting not to sign the birth certificate. And what are the hospitals doing? They're calling the Department of Children and Families. They're calling the government, and they're kidnapping the children for not signing the birth certificate.
Well, then that's when the people, John, need to come together and exercise their Second Amendment like you're talking about. You just can't say, well, they're all attacking me, so therefore it's not my fault. It's all of us to come together like you're talking about, John. Exercise our Second Amendment, right?
Exactly. That's why I'm saying we need to do it.
All right.
If you look at what they're doing today, they're violating us in every way they can. And we're not doing it because we're agreeing to it. I have never even voted before in my life because I could never find somebody honorable enough to vote for. And I wasn't going to vote for the lesser evil. I caught myself thinking that one time, okay, which is the lesser evil here? And I said, wait a minute, I'm voting for evil? No, I'm not going to vote because all I'm going to receive is evil. And that's all we receive from all our elected officials, all the people in government. is evil because that's what we're voting for. Look at the elections. How do they run now? It's not about, hey, I'm an honorable person. No, it's, hey, this guy next to me, he's done this, he's done that, he's done this. And then they're pointing the finger back, and he's done this, and he's done that. They're all evil. They got nothing honorable about them. There's nobody in government or a police officer can't even be an honorable person because he has to enforce laws of domestic terrorism. So he couldn't be honorable if he wanted to. If you take that job,
well,
for
that's
that
a good
check.
idea, John. Actually, they call us enemy combatants. Because they're through the Patriot Act. Why don't we label them as enemy combatants?
Well, they are enemy combatants. They are. The thing is that we don't realize it. You know, most of the people, you go to school, you go through the indoctrination, all you see on TV is these people that are tyrants being glorified as the leaders and as heroes and as the good guys when actually they're the bad ones. Those are the big criminals in this country. There's a problem with
No,
the
I agree, John. I'll send you some information. I got to wrap up the show. I want to thank Mendelicon, everybody.
All right.
We'll do another show most likely Sunday night. I got to wrap up the podcast. They're going to cut me off. So, everyone, good night. Thanks, John Doe. I appreciate the conversation here tonight.
Yeah.
John, of course,
Thank you,
Mississippi.
John Doe.
And Mendelicon, I
yeah.
know he already hung up because if he can't do the rat-a-tat-tat thing, he runs away. So I don't appreciate that,
He has some
Mendelicon.
good
But
things to
you
say.
should have the respect to listen to everyone else, you know. But anyway,
Yeah.
all right, guys, good night. Take care.
Yeah, good night. Thank you, bro.